Welcome to The Source. My name's Adam.
And I'm Zoe, and today we are going to be ranking the top 10 most brutal saw traps.
Let's kick ourselves off with number 10.
The needle pit from Saw 2.
The needle pit. Now, the needle pit, I would say, people would probably put this higher on their list.
I think people would put this higher because with the needle pit, it's easy to imagine what it would feel like. We've all had a needle before. We all
100%.
know what it feels like. We all know what it feels like leading up to getting a needle. You know, the sweats that you start to get. I can't imagine being put into this. I think we had a discussion about it before, and I feel like I would be okay if I was forced into it the way Amanda was, but there would be no way. Like, if I was in a room by myself and I had to physically put myself in that, I don't think I could do it.
It'd be a tough one to do it, to jump into that pit. Of course, the needle pit trap being a trap where the actual, let's say, victim of this trap needed to jump into a big pile of needles to find a key.
A key, and it'd be like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yes, as he puts it. This one, as you watch the scene, I think you guess it's very hard not to be uncomfortable watching the scene.
Yeah,
and
definitely causes some discomfort.
What it would be like to rummage around there.
I think the thing with Jigsaw's traps as well is what makes them worse is the time that they are given. And of course, Amanda, I believe it's only a minute or a minute and a half that she has. No one's surviving that.
No one's surviving that.
You would have to be pretty bloody lucky
to find the key in that kind of time.
I know that the key is obviously in a syringe that is glowing, but still, you would be in so much pain. You're not thinking about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, I think it would be really hard to physically make yourself jump into that pit regardless. Obviously, in the film, no one jumps in there of their own volition. Someone is pushed in there. Would you think if you had to do it, you'd rather that?
Like be pushed into it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At least it'd be like ripping off a Band-Aid that way. Doing it to yourself, and I think a lot of the traps on here involve stuff that you are doing
Let me ask you though, if you were pushed in there, would you, start thinking, well, shit, I've been pushed into this pile of needles, that bastard pushed me in here? Or would you actually sit there and start rummaging through trying to look for the key?
Well, you're in it. You might as well just keep
You
going.
just go for it. You're like, well, I'm here now. I guess I'll get it.
Look, to be fair, in the position that Amanda's put in, if she doesn't do it, she's going to be facing up against a pretty brutal character. And I think that she's sort of stuffed either way.
Yeah.
So you might as well try your best to not, get off easier later on. Absolutely.
I reckon the best move would be you just pick up one of the syringes, pretend it's the one that's the key, and be like, here you go, I've got the key. And then as soon as he reaches for it, you grab his arm, pull him in as well.
Yeah.
And then you get out.
Suffer. Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Do the turnaround. I think that's good.
A little bit of a fact for you before we move on to the next one. When they were filming Saw 2, they did film a scene where the pit was full of real needles.
Yes.
I don't know if you know, but when they were filming the scene where Shawnee had to jump into it, they put a box of real needles in there accidentally and had to clear out the whole thing.
How crazy is that too? You've got one job, all right? You have a pit of needles that are fake needles for the film, and someone decides to throw a box of real needles in it.
And they had to pull out the whole thing. It took them hours.
When you've got a pit of fake needles, the last thing you want to put near the pit of fake needles is a box of real needles. It's probably the last thing out of everything in the world you could put near the pit of fake needles is a box of real needles.
Yeah, pretty much.
They managed to find the one thing in the world that you shouldn't have it. Anyway, that's great.
Yeah, good on them. They are a bit of fan service for us, a bit of content.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
At number 9, we have the angel trap.
The angel trap.
Which Detective Kerry has to face.
Yeah, this is a great trap.
It is a great trap. I think that we can talk about it in the sense that it's not rigged for the start.
Yep.
If the trap wasn't rigged, I still don't think I could do it. Putting my hand in a vat of acid, no, not going to happen.
Well, that one, I don't know. It's not like the same of putting yourself into a big pile of needles. Putting your hand into a vat of acid to grab a key to get out doesn't seem as bad, in terms of the torture aspect. I think the horror of this.
First of all, if your hand is in a vat of acid, how are you using it to grip anything? Isn't it going to be like
Well, that's right. It's hard.
And,
it's absolutely
and
tough.
You're not going to be able to feel your fingers really, right? So how is she doing that in the first place?
Yeah.
Second of all, when she does go to put the key in and it looks like she does have to at least somehow rip out what's going on in this contraption. That would also suck. I mean, obviously hers was bolted in, so she couldn't get it out, thanks to Amanda. But again, not given enough time to do so. I think I'd be dead.
Oh, look, this trap, just the fact, obviously, the way it's rigged to her and the way it tears her apart is incredibly brutal.
It is brutal.
It's one of the definitely easily one of the most brutal traps in the Saw franchise.
Yep.
In terms of being able to put your hand in the acid, probably tough to grab a key while it's burning your hand off.
Yeah, not happening.
But I'd probably rather do that than some of the other options that we have coming
absolutely,
up.
absolutely. It's not the worst by any means.
Yeah.
It's just, imagining yourself in that position. And I don't think that she had adequate time either, but none of them ever do. And I don't feel like burning my arm off.
I don't think there's anything in this list that we kind of feel like doing, I suppose, that being said. Yes.
Yep.
On that note, moving along, what do we have at number 8?
Number 8, we've got the horsepower trap.
The situation you find yourself in is of your own doing. You, your girlfriend, and your friends are all racists.
The horsepower trap.
It's a very interesting trap. It's quick, but it involves multiple people. So I believe there's 4 people set up in this trap, and it is very quick, and it is brutal.
And of course, focusing really on the main person, Chester Bennington, the late great lead singer of Linkin Park,
who plays a racist.
he's a racer, not a racist. No, sorry, he's both. In this scene, what does he have to do to survive?
He has to tear his back from the car upholstery that has been glued. So it doesn't sound too bad when you put it out there, but it really is just like he's flaying himself.
Yeah, I just want to know what brand of super glue Jigsaw's used, because it's very effective. It's
very effective.
I could do with some of that super glue. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I think everyone needs that super glue in their life.
Yeah.
But anyways, he has to peel himself from the car upholstery to pull a lever in front of him, which will then function the brakes, I suppose. Yep. We'll get the brakes active and we'll stop all his 3 racist friends from dying.
Yeah.
We've got his girlfriend who's situated underneath the wheel of the
she
back
gets a
wheel
nice
of the
end
car.
in this one. Yep.
His special friend, I don't know, behind the car, who is attached to the car with some chains, one going through his jaw and a couple on his limbs, and then of course the person who's got it the best, who's in front of the car, who will just get run over
on the garage door
when the time is
the guy all the way over by himself. He's the one I want to be in this trap.
Oh yeah, you definitely want to be probably the guy who's getting run over.
Yes. That's a quote you can take for later.
Otherwise, I feel like at least with the girl who's underneath the wheel, it would be very quick.
Yeah.
So it depends.
I think, out of this, certainly it's tough to watch Chester pulling his skin off. That's tough. Like, you can kind of imagine.
But then again, I feel like I could do it. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I feel like I could do it. You just lean forward as hard as you can once and it's over, right?
It's literally scalping yourself from your whole back, though. It's like...
Yeah, it's flaying yourself.
Yeah.
But, like, it's over quickly.
I don't know. It didn't look like it was that quick. It looked like he was taking his sweet time and not having a good time of it.
I feel like if you grabbed a hold of the steering wheel and just pulled, and that's it.
I don't know,
and then all he
glue.
has to do is reach for this lever in front of him.
Well, look, I will say props to old Chester.
Only.
Chester did a great job in that scene. He really nailed it. Sometimes they put these cameos of celebrities in.
The music was good. They had their heavy metal music in the background.
It actually
I don't know
really
why
well.
heavy metal is associated with racists, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, they're not listening to Taylor Swift or something, are they? I
don't know. I think I can point out a few racists who might like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, okay. Maybe next time. Maybe next Saw film, we should let them know. Let's not be cliche in 2023.
I tell you what, I definitely wouldn't want to be the guy who had the chain in between his jaw. No, thank you.
The aftermath of him was not pretty.
No, it wasn't pretty.
Let's be honest.
And yeah.
Yes.
Lovely.
Well, enough about that. What have we got next?
Next up, we have the scalping seat.
Oh, the scalping seat. See, this is kind of similar, but just the head instead of your back.
The scalping seat pisses me off so much because Rig is just useless in this whole scene.
So what does she have to do in this?
In this, she just has to sit pretty, really.
She just has to sit down.
It's all in Rig's hands.
Yeah.
And Rig is just useless.
And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Would you rather you have to do something horrible or just wait for someone else?
I would definitely probably... I know, as bad as it sounds, I'd probably rather be relying on someone or something else.
Someone else, yeah.
Because I feel like if I was put into a situation, you know, where I have to cut a limb off to save myself, it's not happening. I'm sorry. I don't have the will to live, or the enough survival instincts.
I don't have the will to live,
as Jigsaw puts it, to do that to myself.
Self-mutilation seems like a bit much.
Being in a position where I'm relying on someone else, although I'm getting pissed off about it, at least it's in someone else's hands. I don't need to go out knowing that I wasn't strong enough to save myself.
Well, that's true. Blame someone else in every way possible.
Exactly.
And especially if you're in a lot of pain too, it's kind of nice just to be swearing at somebody else the entire time.
Exactly.
You useless
Rather
bastard.
than thinking about how I could have saved myself. Anyways, the whole point of this trap is she's in a seat with the gears in the back of the seat slowly winding her hair back and essentially scalping her. Yeah. Now, it's Rig's job in there to find her a way out. And she tells him at the very start of the trap that the number for the combination is on the cogs. And instead of just using that, he runs around trying to find something to cut her out, which I feel like, to be fair, is probably something you would try and do.
Yeah, I mean, you could try and cut her hair. That'd probably be nice and quick, you know. But
in doing that, he does waste his time, and she ends up being at least half scalped.
Let me ask you though, if you were getting scalped, what about preferable? What would you prefer? Would you prefer it to be like that, where your hair's just pulled until you're scalped, or traditional scalping, just cut it straight off?
Like someone cutting?
Yeah.
No, I
Which
probably
one?
just prefer my hair to be
the hair.
Yeah.
I don't reckon.
Really?
Yeah, the pulling until that's a long, horrible procedure. Just one and done. I mean, come on.
When you think about it, though, you think about the scene from Terrifier 2 where she's scalped. I can't remember her name, but no. Much rather just have my hair pulled back, to be fair.
Oh, the experience, though. Anyway, not good either way, I suppose.
Next up, we have a classic, a trap that is shown multiple times
Most
throughout
iconic
the Saw
trap.
universe. It is the reverse bear trap.
I woke up. All I could taste was blood.
Funnily enough, we don't actually get to see it in action until Saw 3D, or Saw the final chapter.
Had to happen at some point.
It did have to happen at some point, and oh God, was it good to see Jill cark it. It was amazing. It is brutal, though.
Very brutal.
Very, very brutal.
You weren't a fan of old Jill.
I hated Jill. I hated Jill. First of all, her whole arc with her becoming aware of what John was doing and sort of being not okay with it, but willing to ignore it. Revealed later on, I thought that part was stupid. But not only that, she put my boy Hoffman in the reverse bear trap, and God, was it good to see him do the same to her and her not be able to get out of it.
Don't cross Hoffman.
Don't cross Hoffman.
That's
no,
really
he is a mastermind. He really is. He's brutal. He's more brutal than the reverse bear trap.
The reverse bear trap, absolutely iconic, obviously. We've seen it numerous times now, and it's sort of the one that we think about when we think about Saw. So obviously has to make this list. And look, it wasn't really that brutal until it finally did get its
Exactly.
day.
I think that if you think about the reverse bear trap in the first Saw, what it could do, hypothetically, was disgusting and brutal, and you wouldn't want to be involved in that. But Amanda's test of having to kill someone else to get out of her trap, I don't know if you can really count that as a trap. You're not hurting yourself. You're just hurting the life of someone else, which I think most people will correct me if I'm wrong, but I certainly would be able to do it to get myself out.
If I'm going to be in a trap, give me that trap.
Give me that trap.
Give me that trap.
Sorry, I'm going off unscathed.
Make it somebody really useless and unable to defend themselves.
I mean,
please.
I definitely prefer a real piece of work down there, but you know what? Put my friend there. I don't mind. I'm doing it. I'm coming first.
I don't mind whoever it might be. Let's just get it sorted. Look, at the end of the day, reverse bear trap, and how can we not mention, of course, the use of the trap against Hoffman as well?
Yes,
great scene.
It is an amazing scene. As we actually watched it recently for this video. we pointed out that he's the first one to really try and use his surroundings to get out.
Or at
of
least
this trap.
successfully.
Successfully, yeah. And I think it does just go to show how smart he is, and how inadequate Jill is for making so many mistakes. I mean, I suppose she's not really to fault considering she doesn't do this for a living like John does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a great scene. I didn't see it coming.
I think the thing with the Hoffman bear trap scene is you're not really sure if he's going to live or die.
No.
And they kind of almost make out that
you kind of think he's going to die.
Yeah, they kind of make out that he will probably die. There's a lot of great like little flashback cut-ins and stuff like that, and he's trying so hard to get out of the trap, and all of a sudden, right at that last second, he gets it jarred in between the bars and survives. Great scene. Very smart, really.
Very smart.
Works out quite well. So,
he does end up a little
fun.
disfigured, but I think it works for his overall look, especially in the next Saw where he goes a little bit nutty. Yeah. And wouldn't you as well? Wouldn't you want to kill Jill too if she had done that to you? 100%.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's great.
Yeah, on another behind-the-scenes note, you might not know, but he became the Joker after that big cut through his mouth.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Happened through the bear trap. That's how we got those scars. They finally announced it. It was a bear trap.
They should do a Saw and a Batman crossover. I would like to see that.
I mean, the Joker fits in the Saw world, so kind of makes sense, really.
100%. It would be Costas as well.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, moving on. What do we got next?
Number 5, we have 10 pints of blood. Now, I feel like this trap depends on their decisions. If we're talking about it, how it went in the movie with them ultimately not realising that they all could have survived every single trap and would have only had to suffer with 2 pints each if they had all been smart enough. If there was only 2 people left, that is not happening.
I'm almost surprised that they survived it.
Yep.
Realistically.
Not doing it. Not doing it.
Let's obviously recap really quickly what they had to do.
So in the trap, they have to sacrifice 10 pints of blood. And the way that this works is they are forced to put their hand in a contraption which will be sawed in half.
Yes, and not in a nice way.
Just, straight down the middle between the fingers.
Yeah, I mean, these electric saw blades that they keep putting in the film, I couldn't see myself personally putting any limb or body part into one.
I definitely think that if they had have ended up with 5 people, I could definitely do it. Again, they would have been in there for maximum maybe a minute. They didn't. They had 2 of them, and they needed to sacrifice 5 pints each. And it's just at the end, their hand was just awful. And good on them for trying, because it wouldn't be me. They pulled it off, and it would not be me. No, thank you.
Yes. Well, I mentioned earlier, I think that the real idea would be to just push the other person further in, and then you'd be all good.
Yeah.
I guess there is that move as well.
And then you do risk as well, though, them getting out and.
I don't think anyone's doing anything back to you once they've got their arm cut in half. I think you'll be okay. I think you'll be all right. But that was it was a brutal trap to watch, and the idea of having to do that yourself. There's a few scenes where people are expected to cut themselves with circular saws, and you just can't imagine yourself putting your hand in anything like that.
No.
I think it's a bit of a stretch.
I think that it's similar to like the sacrifice of blood in Jigsaw, where they just have to sacrifice their amount of blood, no matter how little, with the saw blades. Even that, you have the guy coming up with his finger, and it's like, nope, not happening.
And even then, your finger's a bad idea, because you lose the whole thing, really, besides cutting it slightly.
You would need to be so careful to not lose that whole thing. Any circular saw trap, no.
No thanks.
No thanks.
They've really taken it to the next level. Moving on. What do we got next?
We have number 4 at the Brazen Bull.
The Brazen Bull.
Saw 3D. It's the last trap that we see,
a classic torture
Jill
trap.
Getting her mouth ripped open. But this one I think hurts more when the poor girl in it does not deserve to be there at all.
Don't deserve to be there.
She's there because her husband is a shit. That's why. In this trap, she has no way of escaping herself. She is relying on someone else. She is put into a ball-shaped sort of oven that is cooked. no thanks. No thank you.
This is a very old medieval type trap, and I think it's hard not to put this pretty high up in the list because going through this is said to be one of the worst experiences possible. Well, the worst ways to die.
Yeah, I think burning to death is probably not great at all. I mean, you definitely don't want to do that.
This is like being in a sealed fry pan.
Personally, I would still rather burn to death than have to cut off any body part.
You probably
That
say that
may
until
be-
you're actually in the thing.
That may be an unpopular opinion, but
Yeah.
I think that I definitely would rather that than have to cut off a limb.
Even if it was a small limb.
or maybe like a finger or something, I'd
Yeah.
be fine. But if I'm having to cut off my arm or my leg, it's just not happening. I'm sorry, it's not.
Put her in that Brazen Bull. She prefers it.
Put me in the Brazen Bull. I'll die peacefully.
I don't know. It'll be peaceful. I don't think so.
This trap also relies on her husband, the little maggot, to participate in the trap that he lied about being in. So to hoist himself up with hooks between his pectoral muscles. First of all, he doesn't pierce them deep enough, so he's
we didn't see him pulling that off.
No, it doesn't seem plausible at all. Yeah, no.
He didn't know what he was doing.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
terrible.
And to be fair, he didn't save anyone in that whole fucking movie. He could not save a
normal.
single person.
Pretty normal for Saw, yeah.
At least he made his profits while he was alive. Good on him. Now is everyone he's ever cared about is dead.
Yeah, that's
Great.
That's really great.
Good on him.
And moving on, what have we got next?
Number 3, we have the crushing room.
Hello, Agent Strong. If you are hearing this, then you have once again found what you were looking for.
The crushing room.
I think this is one of my favorite scenes.
Definitely a top pick
It
for
is
you.
so iconic. Watching Strom or having him listen to his tape that tells him his way out,
Yeah.
and he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it.
This could be your favorite trap almost, really.
Oh, it's so well done.
Your
and
personal favourite.
you know what? With Strom as well, he's the type of character that you kind of root for, but you see his death coming the whole
Yeah.
time, and you're like, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. And I'm so glad that is the way he went out. I'm so glad. It works so well.
So
Having
glad he got crushed by 2 walls.
I do get ahead of myself. Let's get to how this trap unfolds. So
Yes.
Strom is trying to track down Hoffman, which he's now put together miraculously. That
He was incredible. He was incredible.
He is Jigsaw's apprentice, or the person who's been helping Jigsaw and Amanda Young all along. He ends up in this room with a glass box and a tape that explains that his only way to survive the room is by getting into the glass box. Unfortunately, Hoffman enters the room, and Strom tries to use his game against him by putting Hoffman in the glass box instead. This ultimately results in the walls coming in and crushing Strom while Hoffman watches from below in the glass box. I think that it's a hard scene to watch specifically because there is nothing that Strom can do to get out of it.
Yeah.
His impending death is just coming slowly, and Hoffman's there smirking, watching the whole thing happen. It's great.
Hoffman sort of seems to not really have much of a reaction to the death. He's just staring blackly, just like...
There's definitely a bit of a smile.
You reckon?
Yeah.
He barely moves, and he's definitely like lying back.
He does his old head tilt as well.
He just looks like he can move inside
So good.
in the coffin there himself. So
Poor Strom. At least we still had his hand left. Part of him did carry through to the next movie.
that's true, and we do have a couple of nice little tidbits of info on that trap there, of course.
Yes, that trap was actually... was it the director or the producer? Someone on the set of Saw's son came up with the idea for that
That's
trap.
right.
He came in while they were shooting Saw 3, I believe, and said, "Hey, Dad, look, I came up with this idea for a trap." And ultimately that was used in
Turns
Saw
out
5.
the worst nightmarish traps come from the
The
minds of
7-year-old
children.
children. Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Which is interesting because, again, I think it is one of the best.
Yes.
It is the most impactful with the person who's in it.
Yes, that's right. And in the making of, they said that they also believe it was the only ever on-screen actual death of
In a
someone
crushing room.
being crushed. They normally always, of course, make their way out.
Make
and
their way out, put their pole up and
Yeah.
stop the walls moving.
Strong
I'm
was getting
assuming
out.
someone would have died from it before, but I believe the correct term they said was that it had been done on screen.
Yeah.
And they killed it.
Yeah.
They freaking killed it.
Yeah. Yeah. They killed him.
Hoffman was happy. I was happy. Hope all of you were happy.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody wants to see a crushing death at some point, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which only leaves us with
Crushed
two
it.
more. Two more left. At number 2, we have the rat.
Number 2, the rack,
rack.
which I feel like most people put at number 1.
This is incredibly brutal, this trap.
It is. It's tough. So the victim is put into a machine that has his all of his appendages.
All of his
punctured.
appendages? All
Yeah,
of them?
they're all punctured.
There's a couple of appendages we didn't see in the film, but yeah, all of them have been put into a twisty machine.
They're punctured and they're put all at his sides and
Yep.
as well as his head, which is also in a similar contraption.
Mm.
And pretty much one at a time, these cogs begin to rotate, and so do his limbs, resulting in another crushing finale with all of his bones breaking.
A very, very brutal trap, because there's also an extended version which you can watch.
Which is, makes
which
it
is
even
worse.
more brutal.
Yeah, which is even worse. But as bad as it was also quite interesting scene to have, obviously, a couple of people that were sort of superfluous almost to the trap, trying to get him out, which
Yes.
it was a bit of a mess.
Yeah, and obviously the person who's trying to get him out is also his son has passed away, and the whole reason why this person is in the trap is because he's the one who killed his son.
Yeah, the dynamic
interesting.
is really interesting inside.
Oh, it's definitely
there.
interesting to see unfold. And I think one thing that Saw 3 does really well is it puts you in a position of thinking, what would I do? Would I save the person who killed my son?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that something that they show briefly on screen is the fact that the person, Timothy Young, in the trap, it wasn't a hit and run. He stayed. He was there the whole time, and I think that can he really be put at fault?
Yeah, he wasn't. It seemed like it was an accident, pretty much.
It was an accident, and accidents do happen. So I don't know if he deserved what he got, but again, you'd have to try and put yourself in his position and what he was feeling. To get out of this trap, Jeff had to get a key, and the trigger was of a shotgun was attached to the key. So every time he pulled on this rope to try and get the key out, the shotgun was going to go off, and eventually we did see the shotgun shoot the lawyer, who was annoying. That was a long time coming.
Look, it was quite an enjoyable scene, actually. And the way he pulled the key off and managed to get that done without the shotgun going off, and the lawyer taking it in the face, it was pretty well done. It was well done. It was.
I like Jeff. I can't believe there's people out there that hate on him. I really enjoy his character. I think.
Yeah, I think a big thing for Jeff was that he was played by actually a really good actor who really pulled it off. Because Saw's actors are a bit of all over the place. We really get some which are very average.
A lot of no names, which
Yeah.
I think is what drags down the whole emotion side of things.
Well, it's just not necessarily no names, but also just not, I guess, experienced or not amazing actors and not really holding their own. But you get some that are phenomenal. It's a very mixed bag. And yeah, he was actually great.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. So the rack, I think it deserves its place. In the
It
very
does.
top
It is
echelons.
brutal. You've got the sound effects of obviously all the bones breaking, and they don't shy away from showing you his head when it finally does take the spin all the way around. So yeah, I think it's pretty brutal. I think that maybe potentially if you were really placed in a trap like this, you would have passed out maybe after the second broken
I would
limb.
say. Yeah.
But I still think that the way he's acting as well, the screaming through the whole time, it's very impactful. You wouldn't want to be in that trap.
No.
And I think with this one, you know, you can't even say whether you survive it because it really does rely on someone else. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. Although, I'll tell you what, once he got the key to help him get out, I don't know what he was doing after the fact.
It's like he couldn't find the lock.
It was
he
very
couldn't
weird.
Find the way to get him out.
Very weird. They
He
got
ends
the
up
key
with
and all of a
kind
sudden
of his
it's tugging.
hand stuck in the cog for a bit because he's trying to stop it, and I don't know why he's trying to stop it with his bare hands. I don't know why.
The
you
ending
think
to the
it's-
trap was very odd.
Yeah, it was odd, and it almost seemed like he forgave him, like he was really upset about it.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Took him a little bit to decide.
Absolutely. So, that being said, we are at number 1.
We are at number 1.
Time to finally relieve the suspension of what is the number 1 most brutal trap.
We are here, and I feel like a few of you may have already been able to guess it, but it is Pound of Flesh. Oh, This one, there is no chance in hell I'm surviving this. Pound of flesh has 2 people set up either side in a cage, and in the middle, there is a weight.
Yes.
And it's pretty self-explanatory. They need to offer up a pound of flesh, and whoever offers up the most flesh survives, and the other one gets their brain pierced with some screws. Yes.
This is a tough one. This is a tough one to watch.
It is a tough one.
A tough one to watch.
You certainly have, so you have a guy and you have a girl. And now the girl is quite skinny. She doesn't have a lot of flesh to offer up. Whereas the guy is more broad. He is on the bigger
That's one way to put
side. He is on the bigger side. Now the guy decides that his best option is to start cutting off pieces of his stomach. That's where the most of his flesh is.
And that itself is pretty brutal.
It is pretty brutal to watch, and he goes quite quick. He doesn't even think about it. He's got his shirt ripped off. He's taken off bits of his stomach, and he's dropping them in this weight, this scale. And she is ultimately realizing, I'm not getting out of this until I offer up something big. And she begins to cut off her arm.
And watching her cut her own arm off is quite a sight.
Yep, it is. She starts off pretty low and then realizes, oh, I'm going to need more, and then starts hacking off the above her elbow, and it's intense.
It's very intense.
It's really hard to watch.
I think there's obviously a lot of brutal traps in the Saw franchise, but just watching somebody cut their own arm off is...
She starts off with quite a small knife as well. Obviously, she opts to go for the meat cleaver by the end of it.
Yeah.
I don't know why she wouldn't have just picked up the meat cleaver to begin with. If I had to cut my own arm off, I would want it to be as quick as possible. I wouldn't want to be sawing through it with a tiny-ass knife. I don't know.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
But it's pretty classic with all these.
She gets her arm off, she puts it in the scale, and ultimately she wins the trap and she survives.
Yeah.
Missing an arm.
Yeah.
She does live.
Well, that's it. It would be interesting to watch the other guy survive with his whole stomach missing because he ends up cutting so much of it off.
Yeah.
But a very brutal trap. I think that for me, that having to do that, like whether you were him or her in this scenario, to be very difficult for
yourself. You'd want to be with someone who would just be so scared that they wouldn't want to offer up anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It would be funny you're sort of looking at each other and you're both like cutting off their hair.
Yeah.
And you're both like, okay, I'll do that. And, you go, oh, and
I'd watch them do it too. I'd be like, oh, okay, like cool.
Right.
And then at the last minute, I'd cut off like my fingers and put them in and be like, ha, suffer.
You'd hope you're wearing some rings or something to bring some extra weight into them. So.
I'm sure Jigsaw would have thought about that though.
I don't know.
Like, I think with that trap, the people are like, well, you could have just put a shoe in there or something.
Yes.
I feel like Jigsaw thought about that. He knew that people were going to go for their shoes. They wouldn't have been.
Just hope that you ate a really big meal the night before and you just shit down the pipe.
Vomit, yeah.
Yes. Induced vomiting too. That would be worthwhile. But there's a few ways you could have worked this way.
I think the thing with Jigsaw's traps, so like we talk about a lot that things that we would do instead. Like we could just even with the pound of the 10 pints of blood trap, I've seen a lot of people say that I don't know why they didn't just wee in there.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were ever faced with that sort of situation.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be thinking about that too much. You just want to get it done.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't have enough time to be being like, oh, can I put my shoe in there? Oh,
well, that's why
he
he gives him like 60 seconds half the time.
Yeah. Whereas Hoffman is like, nah, I'm a bad bitch. I know exactly what I'm going to do. He thinks everything out.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. Well, that is our top 10 most brutal traps of the Saw franchise. We would love to know what you thought.
Do you agree?
The most brutal
Tell us
trap
what you
was. Let us know if you thought the list was good, if you disagree with it, and also, what you thought the most brutal scene was. So that was great. Hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Please subscribe if you liked the video, and we will see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.
Game over.